today. My name is Paul. Paul's my name, so there we go. No, I'm just kidding. I just want to highlight there are a few people with name tags around. If you have any questions about Second or way we can serve you, just find one of them. They'll gladly help you out. So we're glad you came to Second in order to know Christ and to make Him known, and that's what we wanted to be about here at Second. And so. My wife is dancing in the back right now. I don't know why. I told her I was nervous when I was up here. So anyway, she's just distracting me very well. Okay, there we go. So there's a connection card in your seat right in front of you. We'd love to know a little bit about you, not to stalk you or anything like that, but just a way to serve you. Also to be able to pray for you, and you can put those in the offering plate on your way out of service today. And also, if you're a new-time guest with us, we'd love to give you a gift. This is a nice reusable shopping bag, because that's what everyone does these days. And we'd love to give you one of those in the foyer right outside. And other ways you can connect as well, you can find out there. So again, thank you so much for joining us this morning in worship, and we hope that you be able to connect with God and also help understand how to let others know Him as well.
So if y'all want to stand again as we continue our worship. We taught this song to you last week. We introduced this song to you. But the message of this song is it's a victorious proclamation is what it is for us as believers, because the enemy is real. And what he tries to do in our lives and to us is destroy us. And he does a pretty good job at it. He makes us doubt our self-worth. He makes us doubt his goodness, God's goodness. So this morning as we're singing this song, this is a victorious proclamation for you to sing over your life, because this is what God has done for us by sending us Jesus. Jesus came to earth to die. But when he defeated death and rose again in life, he gave us life. He gave us freedom. And that's something that we can celebrate this morning. Because of Jesus, we are no longer dead. We're no longer headed towards an eternal death, but because of Jesus, we can have life and we can have freedom in him. So let's worship him this morning for that. Let's proclaim the victory that he has given to us in our lives. God, because with Jesus' death, we have life. Because he didn't stay dead. Because of the resurrection, we have life. And that's the reason why we're here this morning. Because of that new life that we have, that we're given because of Jesus. So God, we worship you. And we ask that this morning that you would speak to us, that you would teach us, that we would just be able to push aside all of the distractions that are hindering us from hearing your voice. And that you would speak a word to us. That we would put our trust and our faith and our hope in you, because this world gives us so many reasons to doubt everything. But God, I just pray that this morning that you would be so real and we could put our hope and our trust and our faith in you. And then that would be the solid ground that we can stand on. We love you. We worship you. In your name we pray these things. Amen. Amen. Be seated.
Now, home is a lot of work. Just plain work. When work at home is planned and organized for cooperation, there can usually be more time for leisure.
I'm certainly in favor of those things. Leisure, fun.
Who isn't?
Wouldn't we all be happier if we worked out a little system for living together in harmony?
But how can we manage them?
We'll have to work out the full answer together.
Say, Mom, you're swell.
Most family problems can be solved through frank and friendly discussion, which points the way to a happy family life.
You know, this is beginning to be quite a family project.
It certainly is.
I know your family's perfect like that. My family is. You get in a car. Have you ever noticed when you get in a car, like everybody begins to love on each other a little bit more? Awesome. Did I do that right? Am I on now? There we go. Yeah, not those guys and me. So have you had a good week? How many of you are tired? All right, nobody's admitting it, but they're just on a couple of them, okay? Yeah, I hear you. I came early, right? How many of you went to bed at your normal time to only realize you've just lost an hour of sleep? Awesome. I got to mow yesterday. I was going to mow just a little bit. 7 hours later, I decided it was time to pack up. And so I had a little allergy, so that's why I got my coffee. If you do drink coffee here, we love it. We're glad. Just put a lid on it. All right? Awesome. Cool deal. If you have your Bibles, turn with me to 1 Timothy chapter 3. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about what does it mean to be a part of an imperfect family. And so we're going to continue that series this morning. This will be a little bit different part of the series, but so over the last few weeks, we've talked about what does it mean to be in an imperfect family. And so we talked about belonging to an imperfect family and what that looks like to belong to that. So there's going to be times where we're going to fight and disagree and all that, but that's a part of belonging to family. And then also in the family, you're going to receive something. And so in a family, you should be receiving leadership. You should be receiving discipleship as you belong to that. And then also that you should be embraced, that in a family that you're loved. And that this is one of the things maybe that it's actually, whenever Jesus talks about the church family, he says this is the thing that actually distinguishes us from all other families, is the way that we love one another, that people look at how the church and how Christians take care of one another, and that people want to be a part of that type of a thing. And so we talked about embracing, and that this idea of holding on to even when we don't want to, and that there's the depth of what an embrace can be and mean, and it expresses the inexpressible, right? And someone when hugs you and embraces you. Then also this idea of contribute. And what does it mean? That even from a 2 to 92, we can all contribute to the family in different ways. And so what does it look like for us to be a part of a church family, and how can we contribute? And what are the gifts and talents and skills that God has given you to do that? And so today I kind of want to pull back the curtain just a little bit behind the scenes on church, and we've talked about parents and spiritual parenting, and so I want to kind of pull back the curtain on that and kind of talk to you about what are spiritual parents. What does it look like for a church to have some parents to kind of lead and guide and direct? And so a lot of times when we talk about this idea of parents within a church, you call them pastors. or in some places they call them elders. And so I want to dig into this idea of what does it mean to have elders, what does it mean to have deacons, and so this is not necessarily a typical message, so if it's your first time with us, you're like, what in the world's going on? But I want to kind of pull back, I want to educate you just a little bit on some different things and what it looks like for us to be a New Testament church family, even as imperfect as we are. What does it look like? So if you have your Bibles, turn with me to 1 Timothy chapter 3, and we'll kind of put your finger there, hold there. We'll spend some time there along with some other verses as well, but in 1 Timothy chapter 3. And so if you've been to any different types of churches, churches do church leadership a little bit. Everyone has a tendency to do things a little differently. But what I want us to dig in on is what is the healthiest way for us to do church in a New Testament context. So there's 3 words that we're going to be looking at, and those 3 words are elder, okay? So see that word underneath elder? Say that with me. Ready? Presbyteros. All right, good. Y'all are okay? Say it again. Ready? What does it say? Good. What is that English word you think we get from that? Presbyterian. Presbyterian. Good job. All right. So elder, Presbyterian. The other word that we're looking at is pastor or shepherd. Poimen. Okay. And so this is the idea of a shepherd. That's someone that guides and leads and directs. And so Jesus was a carpenter, but David was a shepherd. There's all kinds of shepherd, and shepherding and sheep are instrumental all throughout Scripture. And so a shepherd is someone that leads and guides and cares for the sheep and makes sure that, that they're taken care of and that they stand watch at night and all those kind of things. So we'll talk about what that means for me as a pastor to be a shepherd. And then also the other word is bishop. And so underneath that word bishop, you see episkopos. Y'all say that? Look at that. Y'all are Greek students. That's awesome. What English word do you see in that? Episcopal. Okay, so you can see where the Presbyterian Church and the Episcopal Church, they get their names from those words. And so Baptists would get that name from what? Anybody have an idea? Baptizo, which means to immerse under, okay? So there you go. There's your 3 words. You can take those to lunch and a nickel and get you nothing, all right? So important things. So elder, bishop, pastor, those 3 words are interchangeable. And so all the times that they're used in the New Testament, they're interchangeable words used in the context of the local church. So Second Baptist Church, or whatever church that Paul and Barnabas or the early church leaders were going to, they would go to different churches, they would establish new churches. So Paul's call was to go around and share the gospel and to start new churches. And every time that he would start a new church, he would put elders in charge. And so when he would put one of these elders, these pastors, these bishops in charge, they were leading. It was a group of men, so a plural group of called and qualified men to lead out in guiding and protecting and feeding and leading the sheep, leading the family together. And so this is that idea that I want you to grasp, is what does it look like for us as a church here to have pastors and shepherds and bishops that are working together to lead and to guide and direct in the direction that they go. One of the interesting things about being a shepherd in those days is the shepherd would go before and would scout out where the good pasture was going to be. They would scout out where the best water would be. And so along the path, and an interesting thing in Israel and Jerusalem, it's actually a very desert area, so it's very hard to find grass. And so you have to look and examine and spend a lot of time in finding where the best pasture is. And so those shepherds would go before and examine and look for where's the best path, the safest path, so that my sheep can get to a place where they can be filled and fed. And so take that to today. What a pastor is supposed to do is to go before his people and to find places of safety, to see where there's danger, that we look at the culture, we look at the world and find where there's possible pitfalls, possible opportunities for us to get in danger and to get entrapped by something. Where are the wolves going to be attacking the sheep? And so as pastors, we're kind of going along that way because our desire is to put you in a place, to put us as a body in a place where we're able to rest and to eat from the best food that God has for us. And so as a shepherd, that's one of the things that keeps me awake at night. As a matter of fact, this was one of those weeks. Even Becky and I were discussing it yesterday. I was like, I probably had 2 hours of sleep a night just tossing and turning and caring and thinking about, because one of the things that I struggle with as a person is you. And I mean that in the way that because of this thing that God's laid on my heart is you, that there are nights that I wake up in the middle of the night burdened by your stuff. Because I don't want for you to fall from the cliff. I don't want for you to be swept away from a stream that's moving too fast. I don't want for you to eat junk because you don't trust the pastor to get you to the best grass to feed from. And then I see as I deal with and walk with you in life is that so many times that we as sheep, and I'm a sheep as well, we settle for less. We settle for not the best, and we get impatient. And so we kind of see something that we think is going to be good for us, and so we go off to this place and we begin to eat, and all of a sudden we realize we're all alone and we're by ourselves and we're not where we need to be. And so that as a pastor, as I'm walking with you, you come in and we talk about these things, I want to let you know that my heart is for you. One of the other things that I've kind of been dealing with this week and think about this is that, none of us see ourselves very well. How many of you carry around a mirror with you? Most of the ladies are like, yes, I'm not going to announce it, but yes, I carry a mirror with myself. But we don't see ourselves very well. Matter of fact, if you've ever seen somebody and you're like, walked up to them and you're like, have you looked in the mirror recently? And usually it's a guy, right? And they've got mustard on their face, or they got food or whatever, they got crusties in their eyes or something like that. And so we're not very good, we have a tendency sometimes to not be very good at looking at and inspecting ourselves in the mirror. And one of the things that as a church family and as your pastor, one of the things that we're called to do is to actually present a mirror to you. To say, hey, where are some things that need to have some adaptation, some change, and some transformation? And so this morning, I want us to kind of look at one of those things, one of these ideas of what it means to be a pastor, what it means to be an elder, and that how we try to lead and guide and direct, and the amount of care, and the amount of prayer, and the amount of weeping, and the amount of lost sleep that takes place. As a matter of fact, I shared in the first service that there's the 3 most difficult jobs in the world, the most stressful jobs. Number 1 is President of the United States. Number 2 is pastor of a local church. Number 3 is a hospital administrator. The average pastor, this is real exciting news here, the average pastor passes away at 52 years of age. So we're uninsurable as a group anymore, because we're a high risk. Because of the calling that pastors feel and sense that's beyond us. We are not God, so we can't be in all places at all times with you offering wisdom, but we want you to take the bits and pieces of nuggets that we give you on Sunday and that you flesh out on your own during the week and make sense of this so that you can find the good food. You can find the pastures that provide rest for you. So this morning, that's what I'm doing, is I want to just pull back this curtain just a little bit so you can see into the world that I live with and all of that. One of the other things that I've been thinking about this week is this idea of community. And what does it look like for us to truly live in community? And so not just this Grange community, we talk about that, so under times the community comes together, but this idea of biblical community, and what is it like to be known and to truly be known by someone? And that it's one of the most difficult things for pastors. I think it's one of the most difficult things for all of us, because when we walk in the room, we want people to say, hey, Chris. But do we really want people to know Chris? And all of us, I think, generally we would say on certain levels, but not on the deeper level. And then we have a natural tendency of, we kind of do life groups, and if we've kind of gotten that figured out, we're doing some life groups, so we're sharing some stuff, and we're kind of growing in that way, we're getting to know each other, and so there's the layers of the onion are kind of being peeled away, but that whenever life really hits, our natural tendency, human tendency, is instead of pressing into community, instead of pressing into those that know us and are trying to know us, we press out because of we're ashamed, because we have some pride, we have some, I don't want people to know the depths of my evil, the depths of my depravity, the depths of my blackness of my soul, and so we have a tendency to push away from those that want to embrace us the best. So what does that look like? How do we move you? How do I get you to understand that the very thing that you kind of push away from is the very thing that you should be pushing into? To truly be known. And I know that there's this other layer for us, because we're in a small town, is if someone truly knows me, my stuff may get out. So you've got to flesh that out. Of what does it look like that I can find 2 or 3 people that I can really do life with, and they know me, and that when my stuff hits the fan, that they'll embrace me, that they'll love me, like the world is looking at what the New Testament church and what New Testament Christians should look like, that they'll embrace me and hold me and express the inexpressible. Because even if they haven't walked those roads that I've walked, or that I'm even walking in, that they will embrace me. As 2 Corinthians chapter 1 even talks about, that some of us have walked some places so that the very reason is that we can embrace others as they're walking through the depths of their pain and their mess. So what does it look like for us to be a New Testament church that fleshes this out? So if you have your Bibles, 1 Timothy chapter 3, you're going to see that there's, before we do that, I'm going to, guys back in the back, jump to Acts 20. It's one of those first slides. And I want you to see this, all these people mingling together. But when we landed at Miletus, this is Paul and a group talking. He sent a message to the elders, to the, say it? Very good. All right. Y'all are in the B+ right now in Greek. Of the church at Ephesus. So here, Paul is talking, and he's sending out a message, and he's asking for the elders at the church of Ephesus to meet with them. And that they're to come and meet him. And when they arrived, Paul declared to these guys. What did he declare? He's talking to the elders, to the pastors, to the bishops. He's giving them a word. Here's your direction for what you're to be about. And so you see these different names intertwined together in this local church body. So guard yourselves and God's people. Feed and shepherd, pastor them. God's flock, his church, purchased with his own blood, over which the Holy Spirit has appointed you as leaders, the bishops, to invest in, to guide, and direct. So what does it mean for this group of men coming together to lead out and guide and direct? It's a plural group of men that are called and qualified to lead the sheep to the pasture. So 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. This is a trustworthy saying. If someone aspires to be an elder, a pastor, a bishop, he desires an honorable position. Now this word aspires, that carries with it this idea of being called. How many of you have ever received a phone call? And nowadays we have ID, right? So when someone calls and you see the ID, if you see that name on there and you like it, you answer it usually. Or if you see the name and you're not willing to talk to them, you let it go to voicemail, right? Okay, yeah, exactly. And so this is this idea of here, Paul is telling Timothy, he says, there are going to be those that have received a specific call to lead out within the church. And that's an honorable call. It's a difficult call, but it's an honorable call. Now there's 2 calls that we receive in general as followers of Jesus. The first call is a general call to salvation. And so that at some point along the way, if you're a Jesus follower, that Jesus has spoken specifically to your heart and to your mind and to your soul, and you have answered that call and responded and said, I believe that you are the Son of God, the Messiah, who died on the cross for my sins, and I need you. That's the general call to what it means to be a follower of Jesus. So that's the general call. And then there's another call to, you have been called to lead out in ministry in some way. And so for me, that specific call came between my junior and senior year in high school, and I was at camp, and God just, I knew in my soul that God was calling me to do something different with my life than what I had planned at that moment. And so as I kind of flushed that out, I wasn't going to be a pastor, I wasn't going to be involved in a church and all that different kind of stuff, and God's kind of laughed at me along the way and clarified what that is. But there's this calling to leadership within a church. And so then the very next thing that he talks about, other than that calling, is he talks about what it means for us to then be qualified. Because even whenever I was talking to Second Baptists and the group that were gathered together and say, hey, we're looking for a pastor, we're looking for an elder to be the pastor and leader of this church, there were qualifications that we had to meet. And so here's some of the qualifications that are necessary for someone to not only can be called, but the qualifications you need to be leading out for a variety of different reasons. Verse 2. So an elder, a pastor, must be a man whose life is above reproach. He must be faithful to his wife. He must exercise self-control, live wisely, and have a good reputation. He must enjoy having guests in his home, and he must be able to teach. He must not be a heavy drinker or be violent. He must be gentle, not quarrelsome, and not love money. He must manage his own family well, having children who respect and obey him. For if a man cannot manage his own household, how can he take care of God's church? An elder must not be a new believer, because he might become proud, and the devil would cause him to fall. Also, people outside of the church must speak well of him, so that he will not be disgraced and fall into the devil's trap. That's some heavy stuff. In other words, that there's these qualifications for leading within the church, but then there's also these qualifications that people people within the community, that as they see the pastors and leaders, that they look at them and go, hey, there's something about them that I want to imitate, I want to emulate, because my call as your pastor, basically I'm standing up here every single week saying to you, imitate me as I imitate Jesus. Now that's weighty. That means everything that I do, everything that I say, that the moments that I get excited at a basketball game and I educate the refs on their incompetence, that people are looking and going, is that what a pastor does? You see what I'm saying? I mean, all those things are wrapped up in that, because people are watching and they're saying, if that's the leader of that body of believers, do I want to be a part of that body? Do I want that shepherd shepherding me? Can that guy take me to the places of freedom? And so what I'm telling you is that God set this idea up of a group of guys doing this together, that it's not me on my own, but a group of guys, because again, there's going to come moments where my humanity is I want to press out from community, when in fact I need to be pressed in and to be embraced and to be held in such a way to say, listen, I know this is a tough thing, I know this is a tough responsibility, but we're going to walk with you through this. And that's what elders do for and with one another. It's a move past just doing life groups, but doing life. And that's the call for all of us. And that these group of elders are modeling and mimicking and shaping out and saying, imitate us as we model what it looks like to live in community together. These plural group of men are called, and that they're qualified. What are the things, what are the responsibilities of these elders? The first thing that an elder is supposed to do is they're supposed to be able to teach. In 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 2, we just read about it. It says they are to be teachers. And so obviously this is one of the things that I do. I teach, and I've had the fortune of going and traveling all over the world and teaching. And there's different levels and different types of teaching. So some teach in Sunday school, some teach life group, some teach VBS. So there's different ways of teaching, and that's fleshed out. But the first thing is to teach. That one of my mentors said that there is no problem, there is no issue within the church or within someone's life that they can't be taught out of. And that the very thing that I teach is this. And constantly trying to, as sheep, trying to understand what God's Word is, and to teach it in such a way that you understand that everything in here has worth and value, and it is relevant. I know that we're in a culture that says this isn't relevant, but I would tell you that it is, because I've experienced it and I've known it. Not just know it, but experience and know it, that whenever we decide to be obedient to this, it transforms our heart and our mind and our soul and our relationships and how we do life. And it's life-giving. So I've experienced it and know it. We need to be able to teach, to feed. The other thing that an elder is supposed to be able to do is to lead. To lead God's people through example and character and skill. And we see this even in King David in Psalm chapter 78, that David, even though he wasn't a perfect person, was called to lead. And he was a shepherd, and so he was kind of set up for this deal of leading and what it meant to lead his people as a shepherd. And the two things that come out in that passage in Psalm 78 too is that he led them with a true heart, not a perfect heart, but a true heart, and with skillful hands. And so that together these two things work together to be able to lead the nation of Israel, to feed and to lead, and then also to protect. The third thing, the role of an elder is to protect his people, God's people, from false teaching, spiritual apathy, and sin. One of the things I love this, is I constantly get emails from you guys asking questions. Like, hey, Pastor Chris, explain this from the message a little bit. Can you explain that thing a little bit deeper and talk about that? Because I've only got 30 minutes. I mean, I could do this for hours, but you guys got to go to lunch. And so, like, dig into that a little bit deeper. And so, asking those questions to go back. And that there are times where there's some things that you begin to believe, or you hear from other teachers and other things, and begins to kind of move you away from stuff that maybe is biblical. And so I have to have those conversations because, again, part of my role is to protect you from walking down a road, because 1 degree off over a long period of time misses the point. And so, not to say that I'm perfect or have all the answers, but there are some things that listen, I need to protect you, because if you go this direction, you're going to think you're heading in the right way, and you're going to be missing out on God's best for you. And so this is one of the things that as an elder, as a pastor, is to protect. It's one of the roles of a father, right? Is that we're willing to lay down our life. This is what this idea of submitting, even, that wives are to submit to their husbands. And I know I've even had people ask me, hey, don't include that word in our wedding ceremony. And I'm like, well, somebody else is going to have to do your wedding. And because what I want you to grasp is that a wife submits because the husband is willing to give his life. Because the husband that is a follower of Jesus is obviously not perfect, but if they understand that Christ gave his life for the church, then that's our call, is that we're to lay down our life for our wife, and that our wife and children are looking at that, and that is a model. And what wife, as I've seen over history, is willing to submit to the husband that's saying, hey, listen, I'm willing to lay down my life for you and for this. And this idea of submit really means is that we're 100% trying to outserve one another. And so that if a husband and wife are together working to outserve one another, that, hey, she's taking care of the things that I don't like to do, and vice versa. You're kind of this whole idea of we're trying to outserve one another. And then there's that moment where there's something that calls for this little extra sacrifice, and I'm willing to step in front of the bus or the car or whatever to give my life for hers. Why wouldn't she be willing to submit in that moment and say, this is your call in that? Protect. And so that is even my role here, is I'm to protect and to be the lead sacrificer and the lead servant. Protect. In Hebrews chapter 3, verses 12 through 14, it says this way, be careful then, dear brothers and sisters, make sure that your own hearts are not evil and unbelieving, or as in a due community, to care for one another and to watch over, because we're human. Turning away from, make sure that you don't turn away from the living God, so that you must warn each other every day while it is still today, so that none of you will be deceived by sin and hardened against God. So, I mean, even this morning I had a conversation with someone asking about, there was this pastor that was on TV, and he kind of expressed something about a topic, abortion. And it bothers a lot of hearts. So I'm not going to delve into that today, but that's part of it, is to help us think through some of those difficult things that we're thinking about and we're dealing with as a culture. And so how do we love well while holding to a standard that's God's standard? And that's part of protecting. What does that look like? So if you're trying to do that alone and by yourself, it's easy to be pushed back and forth by the waves. You don't living in community to stand strong. The other thing that the elder is supposed to do is to care for the people. In 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, care, the pastor, for the flock that God's entrusted you. Watch over them, that when the one has gone away, that there has to be others to care for the 99 so you can pursue the one. Watch over the church body, the flock. willingly and not grudgingly. Not for what you will get out of it, but because you're eager to serve God. And then finally, missionally. And I'm to be on mission and living this out. In Matthew chapter 28, Jesus offers us one of his last words to his disciples, and he says, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me, and then here's your mission. Is you are to be, therefore go and make disciples of all nations. Right? Baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. And what are we teaching them? We're teaching them to obey the commands. And as they become to new disciples, you're to teach them that obedience means love, and love means obedience, and all of this. And so that the thing that I'm supposed to be doing is living this out on a daily basis, and you're supposed to be living this out, because my calling is in some ways, in many ways, your calling. Because my first calling isn't to vocational ministry. My first calling is to Jesus. Your first calling is to Jesus. And so this very command in Matthew 28 that is to me is also to you. And so we're all missionaries as followers of Jesus. We're all missional people, so that when we go to work, when we go to school, when we go to play, when we go to all those different things, we're therefore going to make disciples. And so as they become disciples, as you've seen here, someone kind of gets to that place, then we baptize in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And then we're always trying to flesh this out. What does it mean to be an obedient follower of Jesus? What does it mean to love in such a way that the people are looking and saying, I want to be a part of that family. I want to be a part of that family. I want to be a part of that family. Because of how they love. Because of how they embrace. Because of how there's contribution by everybody, because of the way that there's leadership and direction, the way that everyone belongs to the family, the way that they just do family. Doesn't mean we don't fight. Doesn't mean that there's not discipline. Doesn't mean that there's not times when we struggle with some things, but that this family, even in the midst of the darkest struggles, instead of pressing away, they press in and they embrace. And they do life together because they love one another. And the only way that we can love one another is if we imitate Jesus. Because listen, some of us, we're stinky sheep. And there are some times we don't even love ourselves, much less would anybody want to love us. Except to be reminded of the fact that Jesus gave all because of his love for us. And as we strive to flesh out what it means to be a follower of him and to embrace his teachings to love one another, that we're going to love the stinkiness of our friends in that moment because we know our time's coming. And that we know that someone else has embraced us in our stench and even washed our stinky feet when they needed to be washed. So we pull back the curtain just a little bit to understand what it means, what this whole thing is, and why I do what I do, and the stress that I willingly take on to care for and to love. And what I'm saying to you is, listen, I want you to imitate me. I want you to imitate your elders as we strive to imitate Jesus. And we care deeply for him. We toss and we turn late into the night, into the early morning, because we love him. Because of this overwhelming sense of this call that you can't run from. Once you taste it, you can't run from it. There's multiple days that I think, man, God, if there was anything else than this, give it to me. And day after day, he says, feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. I love you. I want the best for you. How can we as a body love one another in such a way that people say, I want to be a part of this family? Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you that you are the great shepherd, you are the great pastor, you are the great elder, bishop, and leader, and that you feed, protect, and care, and guide. That even your Son came on mission to serve and not be served, and to give his life as a ransom for many. And as a great shepherd, you even gave your life for your sheep. That a hired hand would run, but the true shepherd lays down his life. And Father, that's our model. That's our call. It's to fight for your sheep to the death. Thank you for that call. Thank you for that privilege and honor and responsibility. And we see many more come to be sheep in God's family. It's in your Son's name that we pray. Amen.
Would you stand and sing this? Music fades and all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to breathe something that's of worth that will bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for
Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. Just want to let you know what's going on this week and the coming weeks and so forth. And so in your program here, you can see a sheet. I won't read the whole thing to you, but just because it's spring break, as you notice, it's a little less people in here this morning, so we'll have to rag on everyone else and all their trips are taken right. So, but there won't be any youth or Awana this week and so forth. And also, the men's fish fry is coming up in a few weeks, and so we'd love for the men to come and join us. It's a great way to get to know other guys, other families, and so if that's something that interests you, on the back foyer there, you'll have a sign-up sheet. You can put your name in there. That way we know how many people to expect and so forth. Also, the women's retreat is coming up in Round Top in a few weeks. Today is the last day to sign up for $75. Tomorrow the price goes up to $100. So Whitney wanted to make sure you guys knew that. So please sign up. We'd love for y'all to join in on that. Guys, sorry, you're going to stay home with the kids and you're going to love it. Okay. Number 3, there we go, Puerto Rico. So the church has been investing in going to Puerto Rico and serving that community. And so this will be our 3rd year going. And so we're looking for people who are interested in doing that. But this is a church body thing. This is not just an individual, I want to go to Puerto Rico and hang out at the beach, okay? This is something that we can come together as a group and support that team that goes. A little story that Michael likes about me is when I was a young boy, I went on trips and had the opportunity to serve in missions. And so in order to do that myself, I had to, or got to, cross-stitch jar tops. And I went around door to door selling them. And that's how I got funds to go on a mission trip. And so there's lots of ways to invest in something like this. So if you can't go yourself, please start praying about the group going, but also how you can get involved financially in helping them go. And so we'd love to invite you to do that as well. And then lastly, Second Chance this week. We have the opportunity to serve, and so you can see Shirley Hudson in the back foyer as well on your way out, but we also have a short video about Second Chance. So thank you again for worshiping with us this morning.
When I was growing up, I grew up in a large family. There were 10 of us, and this was right after the Depression, so there wasn't a lot of money. My mom would go to the rummage sales. She would buy our clothes, our shoes, coats, all of the things that we needed. We never had much money, but we always had enough to eat, a place to sleep. I see that there are still families today who still have that same problem, and many of them are here in Grange. And this is a place that we can help them to have what they need for their families. I see families, people who come in and they have little children. They may have 3 or 4 little children, and they're just living from hand to mouth to foot to the next place. And this is a way that they can support their families with a lesser amount of money. I just feel like it's a place that's extremely needed, a place where people can go and say, I really was able to feed my family, or I'm able to go and clothe my family. I don't have to ask for a handout because there is a place I can go and do that for myself. We work from Tuesday through Saturday. We're there between the hours of 9 and 3, and you don't have to be there every day. You don't have to be there all day. If you have an hour on Tuesday and 2 hours on Wednesday, come as you can. We volunteer all of our time. All of us volunteer. None of us get paid, but we get paid in lots of other ways other than money. Stores open on Friday and Saturday. We really need help on those days. If you can help us for a half a day, we would greatly appreciate your time.
And I do have one more thing that I want to announce before we sing our last song and close. I don't know if anybody of you has seen the slide that's been going by, or maybe in your program there's this announcement for a open worship jam night that we're having on the 31st of this month. And what that is, when I was a little girl, my family was very musical, and something that was really fun for us whenever we got together with another musical family, we would just bring our instruments and we would play songs and we would sing together, and it was just so much fun. There was no practicing, there was no setting up, there was no, any of the pressure that comes with like performance, and we would just have a good time. And so that's what this is about. Just if you love music, if you sing, if you think you can sing, if you play an instrument, if you think you play an instrument, just come and just join us. It's just going to be fun just to be able to just worship with musicians, and if you just want to come and sit in the back and listen, that is totally okay too. We're just going to have a good time that night. So I wanted to just kind of throw that out there. If you have any questions, find me after service or email me, and I would be happy to answer those questions. But let's all stand now and let's just sing our way out this morning in worship and celebration.